And of course, then the major denominations that were formed, a 2 million, 5 million person denomination, can that denomination have a sense of personal loyalty? Can you really, do you really, even people on all sides of the political issues, I found very few people in the ELCA or the LCMS who really have a sense of themselves primarily as ELCA or LCMS. Now, maybe a little bit more in the LCMS, but not so much. And of course, the LCMS went through their fragmentation in the late 60s and early 70s, and the ELCA, AELC, broke off. But most of the people who were the moderates in Missouri stayed in Missouri. And what they did is Missouri became more and more balkanized. In other words, it's more fragmented, and there is, and we have our problems, they have their problems. There's a weird paranoia in parts of Missouri over rooting out traitors. And I don't want to speak ill of another denomination. I'll be hard enough on the ELCA, but there's a lot of wonderful people in both denominations, I would say. Anyways, the movement then eventually came to in 1988 to unite the LCA, ALC, and AELC. This vision of a singular Lutheran denomination had died in the early 70s with the stuff that was going on in Missouri. And this, of course, do you remember the CNLC? Some of you are long enough. The Commission for the New Lutheran Church in the 1980s. And interesting thing, this is the part of the history that I'm working on at this point, is that it really was emphasis on a new Lutheran church, not just a chronologically new, but a new kind of Lutheranism. And in some respects, for a lot of people on this, it was a way of doing an end run around what they saw as entrenched denominational structures and bureaucracies that had been conceived as too conservative and too cautious and too change resistant. In the changeover to the ELCA, we lost a generation of older denominational leaders and officials who could have sort of acted as a sort of a counterweight to some of the more. In some respects, the ELCA is the revenge of the baby boomers. A group of people who grew up and went to seminary in the 60s and 70s, and who were really saying, we don't want this to be our father's Lutheran church. What we ended up with, and I talked about loyalty and everything like this. In some parts of the ELCA, for example, it was almost as if change had never happened. All right? Think of, say, South Carolina or Western North Dakota. Nothing really changed about the merger there. But in a lot of places, it was all new. And it's hard to wrap your loyalty and your patterns. You probably felt this, and those of you who are around in the ELCA, what is your loyalty towards? Towards your seminary, towards your college, towards another group of people with which you affiliate or something like that. A lot of these new synods, I've been in the pastor now for 22 years in the Southeastern Minnesota Synod of the ELCA. I don't have a huge amount invested in that. I like some of the people in there, but it's not my primary loyalty in that sense. Can such a national structure ever engender the kind of loyalty that we imagine? Rather that we ended up with large, rather flabby organizations that are coalitions of varied interest and pressure groups. And what I've found for most people in the ELCA is that their primary loyalty is to a smaller unit or a smaller driving philosophy. And oftentimes these groups work within the denomination to capture the machinery of the denomination and to move that group, to move the entire denomination towards its philosophy. And so this is really what we've been dealing with, especially in the ELCA, but also I think you could say the same thing in the LCMS, is groups that are trying to move the entire denomination in their direction. And we've dealt with all in the ministry, ecumenism, sexuality, all these kinds of things are essentially this kind of movement. And so where we needed 20 years of growing together in trust, what we got was 20 years of fighting over probably the most contentious issues we could think of. I mean, if you wanted to write a script for how to destroy a denomination, this is exactly how you would have done it, right? So now for the well, I'm going to draw a couple circles here. So in the ELCA, what are these groups in the ELCA? First of all, in the ELCA, you've got the Lutheran left, and organizations like Lutherans Concerned North America, Lutheran Peace Fellowship, other kinds of things like this. They have sort of waned a little bit as they have actually sort of more or less taken control of the denominational machinery. And of course, then you've got the low church conservative Lutheran pietists, of which you probably are, many of you are familiar. Thank you. So if you want to look at it, so the left, LCNA, LPF, whatever's left of that, the sort of low church pietists, Lan, etc. Of course, then you've got our friends, the evangelical Catholics, Society of the Holy Trinity, something like that. And then, of course, a lot of people in the middle who are sort of denominational loyalists, sort of people that can go a number of different directions. The interesting thing about this is that, a lot of the people in the middle are not particularly ideologically driven, but what they're most concerned about is the maintenance of the present organization or the present synods and stuff like this. I mean, the bishops essentially, they're trying to hold the thing together. And I understand that, and I'm not ridiculing them for that. They're trying to do I don't know why anybody want to be. I don't know why anybody would run for bishop. It's just a tough job. It's combat pay.